Okay, in my last video, I really wanted to obliterate the idea that you can't blame somebody for their actions just because their actions were predetermined. And I failed to do this, but I'm going to make another attempt. I also said that the simple model of who makes a decision can be abused, but I didn't say how. So I'm going to tell you what I mean by how it can be abused. I'm going to list a few examples of what I mean by concept abuse. Suppose somebody pays you a compliment. You might think that's great, all else being equal. But if you find out that they just say that to everyone, then it becomes meaningless. Or let's say that somebody who's really attractive wants to have sex with you. You might think that's great, but supposing you found out that they want to have sex with everyone, then it really wouldn't have the same meaning, would it? Yeah, that's right, I'm slut-shaming. They say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. I didn't make up this story, I just don't remember the source, but... So somebody says, I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and I'm going to prove to you that you can't cross that line. So you say, okay, prove it to me. And they say, you can't cross this line because before you cross that line, you have to cross a line that's halfway there. And before you can cross that line, you have to cross a line halfway there. And before you cross that line, you have to cross a line halfway there. And so on and so on. And I can draw an infinite number of lines, and you'd have to cross all of them to cross the final line. And you say, that's nonsense, and you just cross the line. Sounds like a paradox. And here's a riddle for you. How do you die of dehydration? Simple. You take 10 half-empty glasses of water and drink them. Only looking at half of a problem can really seriously skew your perception. We're all familiar with causal substitution. We generate a hypothesis, and then we try to rule out the hypothesis by putting them to a test. If you suspect that person A was guilty of a crime, and then you find out that actually person B did it, then that lets person A off the hook. But sometimes substitution is not really appropriate because we all recognize that some problems have multiple causes or multiple contributing factors. So simply being able to explain an event with another cause doesn't necessarily shift the blame. In some situations it does, but in other situations it doesn't, right? So if you want to shift the blame from one thing to another, then you need to have something specific in mind. If you asked what caused an event, and your answer is something vague and all-inclusive like the universe, or the past, or the Big Bang, then you haven't really identified the real cause. It's not enough to say that an event was predetermined or caused unless you have a specific cause that you can identify. If you want to substitute one cause for another, then you have to substitute a specific cause with another specific cause. You can't say person A didn't do it because the universe did it. Right? It's totally meaningless to declare that an event was predetermined unless you have a specific idea of what or who determined it. The past, or the universe, are too inclusive to be used in this way. If you try to do that, then you dilute the meaning to the point where it becomes totally meaningless. So, what I'm saying is, ambient causation is meaningless, and so is ambient agency. When you say that an event was predetermined, and you don't follow that with something specific, you're not saying anything. It's just nonsense, really. So you can't use that as a way to let someone off the hook. Say, no, it wasn't your fault. it was the universe. No, it wasn't your fault. It was the past. It was everything. It was the background. It doesn't work that way. Even though it's true that every event that happens was predetermined, it's also not telling you very much. This is not information that you can use. This is really useless information. So it's best to just totally ignore it, really. Someone tells you that something was guaranteed, predetermined to happen. Just the only appropriate response is, so what? Tell me something I don't know. It's not an explanation, in other words. It really doesn't tell you anything at all. It's a pseudo-explanation.